All right. Well, hello everyone. Thank you for coming and such, as I said earlier and everything. But yeah, so each week, for those of you who don't come here regularly, we have someone who gives a 3-minute like Josh just gave, and then we have someone who gives a 10-minute, talks about the business that they're a part of, who they are, what they do, why they do it, and kind of yeah, what the selling point is for what we do, and yeah, just kind of give a general overview. But I've given the whole spiel on the history of who we are in the past, and a lot of you have heard that several times already, and I will include some of that in this today, but I kind of wanted to take a different approach, and rather than just talking about, like an educational moment with insurance or something like that, I'll kind of give a example of, or a description of why we operate the way we do and kind of the way that our agency approaches things, because it is a little bit of a different experience than the standard run-of-the-mill, just I need to buy an insurance policy. So yes, why do I, or yes, I promote what I believe in. So why do I do that, and how do I do that? So the first thing I wanted to touch on is everything does vary in the insurance world. We might have a person who is part of a big family. We might have a person who is just a single individual and doesn't really have too much to worry about property-wise. So what is it that is different about them that will make us then want to tailor a policy differently? Well, do they have a lot of wealth? Do they have a house that they are just now purchasing? Something that I experienced a couple years back was there's a girl a few years younger than me. She had just purchased a house, and she was trying to save money, understandably so. And in doing so, she said, "Well, just give me, kind of the most affordable auto policy you can give me. I'm seeing what I can get affordability-wise there." And so I explained, well, in this case, I'll do this for you here. This is the quote I have. I wouldn't recommend going below this liability limit. It is the state minimum, but if you do hit someone, if you are liable for something, it's not that much coverage. I would recommend you do something a little bit higher. Well, she ended up, she still wanted to go with that minimum limit policy, and I explained the risk to her with that, but she was still okay with taking that, and she ended up taking it. Now that's completely fine to do that. It is a state minimum, nothing wrong with that at all. But there are recommendations that sometimes we make for that. Now, a person who's maybe just living in an apartment, college student, something like that. Not making that much money. In that case, I would still have the same conversation about the risks involved. But I mean, that person doesn't have as much at risk, such as like they couldn't maybe lose that house that one girl was just purchasing and stuff. They really don't have that much to their name. They should still, if they can, get that higher coverage policy. But there's not as much that they have risk-wise. Or you can even think about if you have a family and such, things are different too. But yeah, no two cases are the same, and we can't really approach them that way. If we did, we'd really just be selling a piece of paper rather than a actual piece of advice and having a relationship with our clients. So that's something that we really do stress a lot. We're not just selling a policy; we're selling something that needs to be productive when it needs to be used. But yeah, just a little bit about us. So I went to Greenville University. That's where I got my business degree. And in 2019, I graduated in 20, but in 2019 was when we founded Alender Insurance Agency, my father and I. And then in 22, we got the Staunton office, which is the photo on the bottom. I just took that photo a couple days ago. We just got the Christmas decorations in there. My mom did those. And yeah, and then that's a picture of the Hamel office. That Hamel office used to be W.S. Meyer Agency, and we acquired that in 23. And yeah, so we have both offices now, and yeah, we have 5 employees if you include my father and I. But yeah, it's been fun and it's been an adventure, and I have people that work for me now, which has been an experience in itself. So I've done my best to be a good boss, I guess you could say. That feels so weird to say that, but nonetheless, it's the truth. And yeah, things have gone well for us, and I'm thankful for that. But yeah, so our slogan that I say quite a bit: relate, educate, innovate. Why did we choose that? And this was actually, I was inspired by a good business friend of mine. He has a real estate agency in town. I was talking with him. I was hanging out with his son one night, and he kind of was giving me some advice and things. And he said, get yourself a good tagline that explains who you are in a really short thing. And he even said maybe a 3-word slogan. And I came up with relate, educate, innovate. We want to relate to people when they come into us. We're not just, like I said, selling them a piece of paper. And then a big thing that I really stress is that we do want to provide things in an educational sense so that people know why they have what they have. And I guess you could say that's a little bit of a sales approach, because if people understand what they have, they'll be swayed to change from it if it's what they truly need. There's a lower chance they'll be swayed to leave that. So we want to make sure people understand what they have and things such as that. And sometimes switching their policy isn't the best thing to do. Of course, you always want to, take on a new client, a new customer. But in some cases, what people have might be something that they just need to keep. But there's always little things that can be improved usually. And then innovate, that kind of is where we take the information that we know, and after talking with the client and such, we put together something. We're an independent agency, so we have access to a lot of different carriers and such, quite a few. There's almost every quote that I run, I'm at least running it through, I would say, 3 or 4 carriers. And we have several depending on who you are that we might run you through. But anybody that comes to us, they're getting looked through by several different companies. But yeah, that's kind of where we stand with that. And I added a thing here. A good insurance agent is a good problem solver. Sometimes understanding proper coverage takes creativity. So I have a very interesting case that I was not sure if I was going to be able to figure out what to do with this, because it was so unique. I had it was these 2 people. They're getting married. They both have kids as single parents, and he's living in Troy, Missouri, and she is living in more in the local area, and they're engaged, and they're going to get married, but they're keeping both houses. So how do you insure the house that they're just now getting? Because they are engaged. Usually you can mark people as a couple, but in this case, since they're not living together and having the same address yet, but the one individual is owning both houses, it was a really interesting case. And I ended up having to call a couple different carriers. And if you'd like to hear more about it, I can tell you. But it was quite the experience, because I was going to submit it as a secondary home with a carrier. I had a policy approved, but the effective date of the policy actually had to get changed. So then I had to resubmit it for approval, which made them realize, I'm not sure if we want to take on this secondary household. And then I had to write it with someone else. So it was an interesting experience. But we were able to find a company that was able to take it. And it was not one of the original companies I looked at, but it ended up working out. So sometimes it takes some creativity and problem solving. But wow, that's not the clearest photo. Well, we all look better than that in real life. But anyway, something that you do want to ask yourself is, what has your experience been with your agent or agency? Do you have a good relationship with them? Are they providing services to you beyond? Yes, thank you. Well, thank you. I'm glad you can say that. But so do you have a good relationship with them? Have they provided you with education when needed and such? And we always try to provide the customer with a good all-around service to where they can walk out understanding that they made the right decision. Like I said, even if they don't go with us, sometimes they can walk out confidently. But usually they do end up going with us, and I can say that confidently. But so a little question that you might be asking is, how does this relate to the title that I provide you guys and everyone with policies and such and services that I believe in? But when bad things happen, you don't want a bad policy. Insurance is something that no one wants to talk about until they have a claim. So when you do have that claim, is it going to be a good or a bad experience? Well, making sure that you do things right in the beginning is what determines that whenever that time comes. And clients rely on us, and it's our responsibility to do that right in the beginning. But that's really all I have. I know there's only a couple minutes left, but what questions do you guys have for me, really? And insurance is not the most interesting topic, but
Try treasury management.
Well,
I kind of made it relatable and told stories.
yeah, well, good. What's an experience maybe you've had that you have a question about? I mean, I can't answer everything, but
I actually had a pretty negative experience with my last insurance company. One of the reasons I switched was because something had happened. I had been switched to agents, and two different agents, and had no transition whatsoever to that experience, because I actually had a personal relationship with my agent, and something health related happened, and there was no hey, there was no smooth transition. So it kind of actually put a bad taste in my mouth because I was like, well, you know, I thought we had more of a personal relationship rather than just end up with these guys. So.
Well, and that can be tough sometimes. We actually experienced that pretty tough with our agency whenever we acquired the Hamill agency. We had a lot of people who were not aware of the change and such. And there was also a insurance company change too. One company merged. Am I up? Oh, okay. But anyway, I was just going to say, we had to deal with a lot of customers who weren't too pleased that the prior agency, that they weren't aware that it was no longer them. But thankfully, the main lady who works in the office, we were able to keep her. And so she had already been talking to a lot of the customers, and they knew her. But that is an important thing to do, because in many cases, the agency that you purchased the policy or the agent, excuse me, that you purchased the policy from is the kind of the face you have to the coverage. So then when that changes.
Been the face of my insurance since 2016, so
Yeah.
it was just like a big change. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, don't expect my face to change soon.
Can I ask a question, even though your time's up? Is
Sure,
that okay?
yeah.
If someone's living in the home, but their name's not on the title or whatever, does that person living in that home as an adult need renter's insurance?
It would depend on the context of the coverage you're specifying, but if you want liability and contents coverage for yourself and just you as a person and such, that is always advised. Yeah, because unless you're listed a certain way on the homeowner's policy, and you would actually, in most cases, have to have an actual interest in being listed that way. But yeah, otherwise you're really not, no. But your belongings definitely wouldn't be.
How do you tell the difference between my belongings and his? Let's make this.
Well, schedule a one-to-one.